I call the meeting of the Narragansett School Committee to order at 7:05. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. First, is there a motion to seal the executive session minutes from tonight?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And we did not take any votes tonight in executive session. And it's now time for open forum. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Yes, come on up and state your name, please.
Good evening, Robert Caradillo from Westerly. Superintendent Cummings, Chairperson McNeese, I hope I said that right, members of the Narragansett School Committee. I emailed you on January 23rd and included a story which reaffirms what I've been saying for the last 2 years, as well as what I told you personally when I addressed you last June 12th. The attempted rewriting of Title IX by the Biden administration was illegal. Title IX was written to protect women against discrimination based on sex, not men identifying as women. The federal judge's ruling from January 9th invalidated the attempted Title IX hijacking, and it reverted back to its original intent, which is based on sex, not gender identity. President Trump reiterated the same as his executive order actions on January 20th and February 5th are now federal law. Blue states like Rhode Island, as well as some districts and RIDE, may need to be reminded of the possibility of legal action in order to facilitate their cooperation. You may consider this exactly that. Your district now needs to do two things. Immediately strike any references to gender identity in your district's Title IX policy, as Westerly, Barrington, and North Kingstown have already done, replacing it with one word, sex. The rest of your policy is fine. Failure to do so would place the district in violation of Title IX and susceptible to legal action. Number two, immediately remove the current transgender policy protocol from your website, as well as all other published areas, as it is invalid. Failure to do so would again place the district in violation of Title IX and in legal peril. Any student who is uncomfortable using the bathroom or locker room facilities of his or her biological sex must use a single-stall, lockable facility, period. This covers every student, every kid. It discriminates against no one. Please know that the safety of and privacy of and fairness to our girls is tantamount. To be clear, there may be no boys in girls' bathrooms or locker rooms, or vice versa. No boys rooming with girls on overnight field trips. No mandated use of pronouns by teachers and staff. That's a 1A violation. I told you that last year. No boys competing with or against girls in athletics, and no keeping secrets from parents regarding social transitioning in school. I know this committee and this district both want to be in compliance with Title IX and don't want any legal action taken against you. Therefore, I urge you and expect you to do the right thing and in short order. The forcing of others to comply with your untruthful, unlawful, and unsafe obsession with gender identity is over. I and others will be watching closely to make certain that you comply to the letter. Thank you for your time.
Would anyone else like to speak for open forum? All right, we're moving on. Okay, so we are going to start with school committee reports. Do any school committee members have an update to give? Dave, you want to go first?
Sure. So we had a mid-year diversity and equity meeting, the winter meeting, where we learned about all the programs that are being run in the schools. There's some real interesting programs going on, but before that, we sent some representatives to the CLE conference, where they engaged in sessions and learned about Native American culture, student belonging, and problem-solving protocols. In the elementary school, they're doing some interesting things. They did this cultural door program where each classroom decorated the doors, and then they had the students walk around, and I hope I'm not stealing anybody else's thunder, but walk around and check that out. I found that pretty interesting. They have a storyteller coming in from the Tamaquag Museum. In the Pier School, there's the Diversity and Equity Club was doing some things on the morning announcements, just celebrating Black History Month. And upcoming, they've got a capoeira program coming in, which is like a Brazilian dance martial art program. So they're coming in to kind of or show the students, I guess, a demonstration. And later on this year, they're going to be going on a field trip to the Pequot Museum. Moving on to the high school, lots of things, cultural celebrations there as well. The one thing I think that I thought was interesting was they had a group of students read it's a fictional book, 19 Minutes, just to kind of examine bullying from a different perspective. I was kind of moved. I admit I bought the book. I haven't read it yet, but it's at my house, and I hope to be able to. I hope to read that, as well as they're learning about the different religious celebrations from. Let's see, I lost my notes there. From just discussing different religious holidays and key events. So, and then they are also, the Tamaquag Museum is coming to visit our elementary school. The high school students are going to visit, hoping to visit the Tamaquag Museum later on this year.
I don't have a question, just a comment. I'm really proud that our district really focuses on safe and inclusive schools for all students, and that we have a district-wide committee that really focuses on planning, events to really celebrate diversity. And I know that we will always support the RIDE policies that also support, safe and inclusive environments for all students. So really happy to hear that report. Thank you.
I was really impressed with the variety of programs that we have.
Great. Well, keep up the good work with that subcommittee, and thanks for the update. Okay. Any other school committee members have a subcommittee report this month? CJ?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just have a really quick one from the Recreation Board. We met last night. We had Dr. Walsh come in and do a presentation for us on some of the mitigation at the beach. So we're going to have to do some more planning on it. But he went through some extensive stuff that's going to be needed to have to be done. So it was a wonderful presentation, and I think it brought up more questions for me than some answers, but it was great. So we'll have to go a little bit further in and where we need to go further with that. And then Michelle Kershaw can help with that afterwards. But the group is doing a wonderful job in trying to assess what's the best next steps for that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then my update is Diane and I are part of the negotiations committee for the support union. Negotiations are going very well, and we're optimistic that at next month's meeting, we'll be able to hopefully take a formal vote to approve the next 3-year contract. So things are going well, and we may be ready to take a vote next month. Okay, I think we're on to the student report. Marco?
Great. Good evening, everyone. Good to see everybody. As we head into February break, a lot going on at the high school, as well as a few activities we had for Valentine's Day. So I want to give an update and keep this as concise as possible because I do know we have a budget to get to this evening. Winter athletics, we are having some outstanding seasons as we approach championship and playoff games. So all I can say is go root for the Mariners. They are playing excellent. The town of Narragansett has the opportunity to host the Class C championship again for outdoor track. We have the chance to display Narragansett's beautiful athletic facilities this spring, so I hope we can make that happen. P.S. I Love You Day. Last Friday, the high school celebrated mental health awareness with multiple activities such as a bake sale and wearing purple. Wellness Wednesdays, our offerings during Wednesday task blocks have been very successful, and we've really had multiple activities to allow students to calm their minds. VASA, Vocal Athletes Against Substance Abuse, a part of that group, and we've started to design posters and flyers to stop the use of drug and underage alcohol use. And we're starting to discuss a visit to the peer school, which we are really hopeful for in the future. We had our winter open house highlighting our new CTE program. It was a very nice night. Senior projects, the presentation day is approaching quicker than usual this year, so March is definitely going to be a busy month with multiple deadlines. So we're kind of working through those pieces right now. World Cultures Club, this is a really nice new group led by Miss Jones and Miss Kinniper, and they have been very active in planning Black History Month and have a Mardi Gras party and Narragansett Tribe field trip planned. The New York trip that I mentioned in December has been rescheduled for March, so while not in the magic of Christmas time, we're happy to make that happen. Midterms, the Principals Councils group and students met with Mr. Mikowski, where students gave some feedback on midterms and how they went, and the feedback from students was really positive. We really liked that schedule this year, and many thanks to Mr. Fiore and Mr. Mikowski at the high school. Lastly, I've been working very closely with Mr. Fiore and Mrs. Maynard, our English department head, to try and create a phone policy that allows students to access phones when necessary or helpful, but definitely respectful towards our faculty and staff. Just a real quick overview on some data I collected from that English class for you. Some students shared that they felt it was necessary to learn proper phone etiquette before heading off to a college or future job. They've used them for assignments and learning and felt comfortable knowing that the phone was right next to their desk in the trial policy that we tried. And I hope this really helps you guys create a cell phone policy in the spring. And I'll be trying out some strategies in my civics class as well, because as you know, every class, every student, it's different. One might work for one thing, one might work for another. So it all really just depends. With that, hope you'll have a very nice February break. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm open to any questions you have.
Any questions or comments for Marco? Diane?
Yeah, I want to thank you for all the research you're doing on the cell phone to give us some data. My only suggestion was that, as you say, you need to enlarge your survey sample. So I'm glad that you're going to be doing some other classes too.
Yeah, that was just a test run for I wanted to try it, start small, and see where that would take me. And then definitely, as you said, I want to be able to open that up, try it a little more, try some new classes, try some new things, and hear some more feedback. So.
Yes, I just want to echo that too. Thank you for being so active in this and trying to get us not just your perspective, but as many students as you can. So I'm very happy, and I'm happy to see this data. So thank you.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure to do it. I enjoyed it. So.
Yeah, that was a great report. Thank you, Marco. I'm happy to hear that, especially at the high school, they've got that principals council where there's an opportunity for the kids to give feedback, when there's changes that are made with schedule or midterms. It'll be interesting to hear from that council what the kids really think about. That was a big shift with pushing up the timeline for the senior project presentations, which so far it sounds like the seniors, even though it's crunch time to be done, that is going to really open up your May and June. But that's a big shift to move that up. So it'll be interesting to hear, besides from Marco, what most of the seniors think about that big shift in the timeline. And I'm glad that we've got the Principals Council at the high school. I'm glad we've got Marco giving updates, and thank you. All right, any other questions or comments for Marco? Okay, so thank you. So this is one of our very important meetings of the whole year. So this is the first time we will hear from Dr. Cummings about the FY26 budget presentation. This will be followed by 2 smaller budget workshops. We'll be back again in March to vote on the town council, vote on the budget, and then it'll kind of shift over to the town council where Dr. Cummings will present to the town council and the whole next phase. So important part tonight. Really glad that the whole admin team is here. And I would say to the school committee that if you have any questions as we're going along, just kind of ask your question as we go along. You don't have to hold your questions to the end. All right, so thank you. Dr. Cummings, you're up.
Great, thank you, Tammy. And, it's my pleasure to kind of give you all an overview of the budget. As Tammy mentioned, this is just the very first step and is a broad overview of some of the proposed elements of the budget, but we will be going into detail as we go into the workshops. And as Tammy also mentioned, as we go along, please feel free to ask questions along the way as we go through this overview.
And then Pete, can you just let the committee know this presentation is tabbed in the binder?
It sure is.
Okay.
Somewhere.
Oh, it's right in
tab one?
tab 1,
There you go.
right? It's right in tab
tab
1, a
one.
couple pages in, so whatever people want to do, if you want to unclip it or whatever, it's right in your binder in tab 1. Thank you, Pete.
You got it. So first of all, I do want to recognize the team that pulls the budget together. Certainly Karen bears, much of the responsibility of pulling all the disparate elements of the budget together and making it a working document that we can review and make some decisions about. So that is not an easy task. So my unending thanks go to Karen and to Emily Sweeney, who is not here tonight, but does a lot of our work with the staffing and pulling the details together. Each one of the principals and program leaders, Melissa, Gail, works really hard to make sure that everything's put together. Steve does an amazing job kind of thinking about our buildings and our operations and our transportation. And Julio, as you know, thinks really deeply in working across the district for our technology and really keeping us at the cutting edge of the things that we do. So it really is a team effort in a small district. It's not something that is kind of delegated to others to report up. Everyone really does this work very hands-on. So as Tammy indicated, we do have a budget schedule that is aligned with the town. So I want to highlight for those who may be watching from home that the budget workshops are really important times for us to go over details of the budget. They'll be held here in the council chambers. They will also be live streamed for those that might not be able to make it in person, but do want to get the details of the budget going forward. We will do the public hearing on the school budget with the town council on March 24th. And then it goes into the town council process of budget development.
Just a quick comment on that. So our regular school committee meetings are a 7 o'clock start, so I just want to make sure the committee and the public is aware for those budget workshops on those Wednesdays. It's a 6 o'clock start time. We're gonna be down here, and we're able to hopefully live stream those.
Yes.
But it's a very intentional moving the time up to 6 o'clock because sometimes those are 2-3 hours and, we don't want to get into some really heavy stuff late at night after 9 o'clock. So it's a purposeful shift to 9 o'clock. And then I see, Pete, that the public hearing on the school budget with the town council, so that's interesting. That is a 6 o'clock start time?
It is. I believe they have a meeting that evening, so it's before their meeting.
Okay. All right, that's a new twist. Sometimes we're at 7 o'clock on a different Wednesday when they meet, or
Right.
we've seen a lot of different iterations,
Right.
but
I could be wrong on their meeting date. They may have one on St. Patrick's Day, but they did want to have it at 6
they
o'clock
wanted it
for their own
6. Okay,
scheduling.
and that works for the committee, for those workshops? You guys are okay with the 6 o'clock start time? Okay, all right, thanks, Pete.
So let me just start with a little overview, right, of our numbers and the number of students that we have. So this year, so these are 24-25 numbers. We have 966 attending Narragansett schools. We have 6 who are in out-of-district placements. So that's often students whose educational needs can't be met within a traditional setting, and so they need to be in a more specialized setting. We have 21 students who leave us and attend career and tech schools, so that could be North Kingstown, Charahoe, those places. We have 11 elementary age students that attend 5 charter schools. We have 17 students that are homeschooled. That's coming down from a peak within COVID in the mid-20s. We have 33 Jamestown students who are here at Narragansett High School. We have 58 out-of-district students at our high school. other than Jamestown, and there's approximately 52 K-12 students that attend private schools. That's a hard number to get exact, but that's pretty close, we believe. So, this is really an interesting trend when you think about our trends. So we're at 27% over 1/4 free and reduced lunch. That's a big jump this year because they've kind of changed the definition, the qualifying of free and reduced. So last year we were kind of in the upper teens, and so more students are qualifying. So I think that's a really important thing to remember when we kind of think about the makeup of our district and the level of need that students have. We do know that students who have fewer resources at home and are qualifying for free and reduced lunch often require enhanced academic services to make sure that they're reaching their grade level benchmarks. So that's a really important thing and related to budget. We're at about 15% students of color, so we are becoming more diverse as a district. When I started here 9 years ago, that was a much lower number. So, the community is becoming more diverse. We are at less than 1% of English language learners, which should really be MLL, so I need to correct that on our slide. We're around 16% individualized education plans, so that's our IEP students, and around 4% with 504 plans, who also require some sort of accommodation due to a disability. Wrong button. So right now, and that is this year's staffing, we're at about 240, about 139 teachers, bus drivers, operations, kind of all those different pieces. So that's a number that is continually going down. So we have adjusted that every year due to population. So we've eliminated 3 or 4 positions every year kind of going forward. We do have more this year, which I'll get to in just a minute. And, there's lots to be really proud of within the schools. This year, as you know, our high school got a silver medal for their AP program, and that's really a K-12 effort. And they were just a smidgen away from gold. So there's 3 indicators, and they got gold on 2 and silver on 1. You only get your lowest one. We have continued strong enrollment in our career and tech programs. And you'll hear a little bit more about that. Our agriculture, computer science, plumbing, they're amazing. They're winning awards. They, are getting first place in the Skills USA. They're doing amazing at the FFA, which is really all a sign of the quality of the programs that we have. For Little Narragansett to have kind of coming in first in the state in so many areas is really amazing. And we were approved for a new program in sports medicine and athletic training. There's strong interest in that within the district as well as outside the district. So we're really excited about that program going forward. Our preschool continues to do an amazing job. I always love visiting the preschool. They really do some amazing things with students, and you can really just look at the data. Our reading scores for our elementary school continue to climb. Our number of special education identifications continue to fall, and that aligns directly with the research of what we know about high-quality pre-K programs, that we have fewer students who will need intervention and more students reading at grade level over time. So we continue to see the benefits of that program. Our music, drama, and arts programs are amazing. Many of you have been to their programs. So many kids qualifying for All-State. And as Marco just talked about, our athletics programs are really doing an amazing job. I was talking with Cole Francis today, he has a good shot to place really well in the 1500 this weekend, so we're all rooting him on this weekend. And one thing that can't be lost is the growth in areas of need identified by the committee. So we've put a lot of energy into mathematics and science across the district. We're starting to see those scores climb, and that's due to a commitment to resources on the part of the committee and some great work by our teachers, our coaches, and our principals going forward. So what's in the budget? How does it align with kind of what the committee has identified in their goals? So first of all, one of the things that we all have to recognize is that there are lots of mandates from RIDE. And one of the things that I have given to the committee, and I'll include a little bit more in our town council presentation, are the sheer number of unfunded mandates that we get handed down to us from RIDE. So, I shared with the committee, there's a 15-page list of unfunded mandates that we're required to do from RIDE. And so because of that, there are lots of things and programs that we have to put in place that are required by the state that we have no control over. One of those is the change in secondary regulations. While they are good for kids, and we do agree with them, it's a massive cost to the district to put those things in place. We're going to continue to do that. We're adding college and AP courses. We continue to do that, refine our schedule. Changes in course requirements and changes in graduation requirements all require kind of staffing and pieces that really affect our budget going forward. As I indicated earlier, we have lots of students that do need extra support, students who have IEPs or 504s, and also students who are not identified through one of those programs, but just need extra support to be at grade level. So we do have interventionists at each school. Our program development in CTE continues to be a priority because that is something that we know our students need for the future. While it is nice to have students from other communities join us, those programs are for our Narragansett students, right? And we have lots of our Narragansett students taking advantage of those programs. I was in the computer science lab today, and they were working with some of the robots, and it's just amazing to see some of the things that they're doing with these robots. So we're really excited for them to continue to do that. We're working hard on our instructional practice, so the work of Gail and the coaches and making sure that we are having high quality teaching and learning, working on a thinking classrooms framework, making sure that students are engaged and interested and getting the most out of their classes is an important thing of what we do. We have an unfunded mandate from RIDE to have revised curricula in every single subject area. And so that requires lots of hours of work from our coaches, from Gail, from our teachers in order to do the professional learning that's required to make sure we're implementing those correctly. Steve has done an amazing job with our school buildings and also with our security. So our continued security enhancements are having a school resource officer in every building, doing our work with Alice so that let's hope we never have to use it, but we're ready to use it if we do need to. And then all of our facilities and transportation. So there's lots in this budget that kind of maintain all of those pieces going forward. So one of the things I want to highlight for you all is the whole idea of it is not only Narragansett that is going through a decline in population. And so the chart that you have in front of you here is from RIPAC, and it really shows the decline in population across the state. While some of the districts in Northern Rhode Island are gaining slightly, Narragansett since 2019, we've lost about 16% of our students, but that's true across South County. So when you look at South Kingstown, Westerly, Jamestown, Newport, lots of districts in our area, it's just harder and harder for families to buy a house with school-aged children in our area, and that's really reflected in the demographics that you see here. So that really does get to our enrollment. And so, what we're really looking at is our schools will get, again, slightly smaller next year. We're looking at a drop of about 20 students at the elementary school and about 20 students at the middle school. The high school will remain roughly stable. And so we're going to look, roughly around 923 students, so roughly a drop of 40 students we anticipate from last year to this year. And so how does that break down? Well, we do have a lot of students coming in. And so when you look at the students coming into the high school, we do anticipate a slight increase in the number of students. And again, this is based on our application trends and the students that we already have here. This will be slightly different by the time all is said and done, but this is what we are anticipating. And we are anticipating some really strong interest in our digital media production program. We see a lot of kids in those classes and applying to that. We continue to see really strong interest in our ag program and our computer science program. And we do anticipate, an incoming cohort of students that are interested in the athletic, sports medicine and athletic training. I spoke to 5 or 6 or 7 out-of-district families at the open house, and almost every single one of them was mentioning, sports medicine, digital media, the ag program. So it was really exciting. We do, though, have outgoing students, and that is the landscape in Rhode Island where students have more and more choice. And so sometimes there will be programs that we don't offer. So, for example, Charahoe has an auto repair program that we don't offer. North Kingstown has a music program that we don't offer, right? And so there are kind of program offerings for some students where they want to do that. Other times a student may be a high school student in a different town and want to continue in their cohort. So they may live in Narragansett, but want to continue in East Greenwich, for example, or South Kingstown. And so it's not about the quality of our school, it's about where that student is feeling connected. However, because they reside in Narragansett, we do need to pay their tuition when that happens. And again, we have kind of a few students, elementary students, that are going to some of the charter schools. And so we do anticipate, a little less than 40 students. Right now we have 30, but we want to make sure that within our budget, we're accounting for the possibility of those student choices. So we do have some strong budget considerations as we go forward, and these are things that the committee is going to have to think about. First of all, the cost of our contractual obligations, and so that's an important piece of what we do. We do have a very large reduction in state aid, so we got cut almost $300,000 due to the reduction in our number of students. I'll go over that in just a second. But whereas the legislator had been holding up our state aid, they had been kind of keeping it level with 2020 numbers. This year, because the state has a large deficit, they're basing it on our actual numbers. So we saw a pretty significant drop in the money that we're getting for state aid. Long-term capital improvements, again, kind of doing those pieces, I think that's really important. Continued investment in early childhood, our charter school and CTE tuition obligations, I think, are really important in growing and supporting our school programs as we go forward. So we are going to have some staffing changes as we go forward. We are going to have, we're going to cut almost 10, a little over 10 positions. And so that at the district level, we are going to be reducing physical therapists. That's going to become an outsourced position. We're going to be cutting our SEL coach. There's some changes at the elementary school. We're going to be reducing a grade 1 and a pre-K and a little bit of Spanish, but we will be adding a kindergarten. At the Pierce School, there's some changes in grades 7 and 8 in all subject areas, reducing special education, some reduction to our interventionists there. We are going to add a little bit of agri-science there. And then at the high school, we are going to reduce, we have 2 school psychologists there right now. We are going to reduce one of those psychologists, and some changes in agri-science and math and world language due to population changes and student interest, and adding a little bit of digital media and social studies due to grad requirements and kind of student interest as we go forward. So the net of our cuts is a reduction of 9 positions. That's more than we typically have, but really necessary in order to keep the budget reasonable. So our capital investments, and we've gone over this with the capital investment committee, with the building committee, nothing that is kind of very flashy this year, but all really necessary for us as we go forward to make sure that we're maintaining our schools and that they are clean and healthy places for our students to be. Replacing the gym HVAC units, at the elementary school, it gets super hot in there, so making sure that those are up to date and providing a comfortable environment for students. At the middle school, a lot of those classrooms are really dated. They still have wallpaper. They still have kind of things that really need to go. So those, that is really messy, slow work. So it's pricier than you would think it would be. And so reconditioning those rooms, I think, is part of what we want to do to make sure that they're great places to learn. We also need to replace windows at the middle school, so that's going to be an important thing of what we do. At the middle school, also, if you can kind of picture the middle school, they have that band around the top of it. And so that needs to be cleaned and painted, and the building itself needs to be refreshed. At the high school, there's a switch gear, which has to do, I believe, with the generator, right? Electrical. And so, so that needs to be replaced. It is important to maintaining the high school in case of emergency, and the high school has some emergency painting. So that does come to about 1.4 million. If you recall, the town council has asked us to devote approximately 3% of our budget to maintenance and to capital planning. So this is in the range of that suggestion.
So Pete, not a question, just a comment. I think it'll be great with these long-term capital plans. I think that we're going to really, the students and the teachers are going to see a noticeable difference, because sometimes you spend this money and it's on parking lots and HVAC and internet access points, and it's like big ticket items, boilers and stuff. But, you know, to see the classrooms really refurbished, and it's going to really, you'll be able to see noticeable differences on the inside and the out, so it's good.
Right, exactly. So, you know, we've spent a lot of resources and energy in making sure that the infrastructures are really great, you know, and these are kind of the next level work to make sure that now that the bones are really in good shape, that they're, you know, kind of classrooms are reflecting and sending a message that we value students, that we value the teaching and learning. And I do firmly believe, and I know Steve has this view, that the setting matters, and that you send a message with the condition of your buildings about how we value education. And so I think that's a really important part of what we do.
And I think it's a big compliment to Steve, to you, to Karen, the building committee, all that long-term capital planning, because it's just like taking care of your house. If you don't replace your boiler and your roof and all that stuff, then you never get to do the painting and the furniture and all the appliances and things that you need. So we're able to do this because, like you said, all the assets are protected with the roofs, with the boilers, with the HVAC, with the parking lots, all that stuff. So very exciting. Thank you.
So overall, okay, and I really want to emphasize this, the overall budget is going up slightly less than 1%. So rounding, you could say just about 1%, all right? So from 37, we're proposing 37,249,779. Last year's budget was 36,883,828. It's a $365,000 $951 increase, which is just about 1%, 0.99%. You know, when you think about, you know, our salaries are, you know, roughly around 3%. Benefits are going more expensive, somewhere in the range of 5 to 10%. It was really a great job by our principals, and certainly the number of staff cuts that we'd have to do to really keep it at this number. That seems reasonable given the number of students that we have lost, to kind of be in that range. And so we're trying to make sure that we're keeping the budget reasonable for the number of students we have, but still providing the high quality services that we know our kids deserve. So what does that look like? Well, you know, again, and we'll get really deep into these numbers as we go through the workshops, you know, salaries are going up a little over 1%. Benefits right now are going to be, for us, going up around 2%, even though the overall cost is higher. And as you go through, our purchase technical services are around 4%. And that's sometimes our tuitions for students that have to go out. Property services are down a little bit. Our supplies and materials are around 2%. When you think about the rate of inflation that we've had over the last year, that's kind of very reasonable. Other property services are down quite a bit. And again, you have our kind of capital expenses being around the same as where they were before. And so when you look at this, I think an important visual for you all is to really think about the vast majority of the budget goes into salaries and benefits. Education is a person-intensive endeavor. The whole point is to have great teachers with our students and to support our students in their learning. That means that we have to have the people to do it. One of the things that I'll remind the committee of and the community of is that just like we have that 15 pages of unfunded mandates from RIDE, you know, there are certain things that we have to do no matter what. So no matter what the size of the school is, we're going to need a nurse. And so the per pupil cost of that nurse is much more when we have fewer students in the school, but we still need that nurse, right? And so if there is, you know, other programs that we are required to give to students because of the way that we are a little smaller, that is reflected in our per pupil to be higher because it's a required service, but that service may not be spread amongst 100 students. It might be spread amongst 40 students instead. And so one of the things that I really kind of encourage everyone to think about is, you know, what percentage are we of the town budget, right? And I'll go over that in just a minute. And so when you look at this, right, how will we fund the budget? First of all, let's look at the state aid. So our state aid was cut almost $300,000. So that, while that's not a final number, we do expect it will be somewhere in that area. So that's a pretty big hit for us, right? And so in order to do that, what we've tried to do is to keep everything as reasonable as we can. We are fully committing any fund balance, as we do every year, into operating and into capital. And so, again, there is not kind of a fund balance that isn't being accessed for this. You know, we do access the full fund balance, both for capital and for operating. So we will be asking for a slightly increased town appropriation, so a little bit under 3%. Last year, our request was around 2.7%. And so we've been in communication with the town manager and town budget director, and so they do know and are aware of what the needs of the school are going forward. So again, while that percentage is at 2.9, the overall budget increase is a little less than 1%. And so, as I said before, right, you know, the proposed town contribution would be $29,456,155. That would be $830,239 increase, or around 2.9% from last year. So as I mentioned before, right, one of the things that you know, I think is an interesting comparison is that when you go to the municipal transparency portal, which is, you know, right on the State of Rhode Island website, you can look and to see what percentage of the total town budget is devoted to education. And so when you look at other comparable towns, other South County towns, you look at a South Kingstown, 61% of their town budget goes to education. When you look at a Westerly, 53%, North Kingstown, 52%, Jamestown, 51%. Narragansett, I rounded up, you know, we're at, it's actually 39.7%, right? And so only 40% of the town budget really goes to the school. So I think, you know, in comparison with comparable towns, right, you know, that is, I would say, you know, a compliment to the efficiency and really responsible budgeting over time. You know, we do recognize that, you know, we are a partner with the town. We try to make it so that all residents benefit. And I will say, having high-quality schools is good for the town. It attracts families to live in Narragansett. It attracts employers and other professionals to our town. It makes sure that we have a great staff to make sure that we're taking care of the children here, and it does make Narragansett a great place to live. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have, or you know, get into any details that you want, just with the reminder that we're going to get really into the nitty-gritty of it during the budget workshops.
So I just have one comment. So, I mean, it sounds like the 3% increase, it's really a 2%, because 1% is really just making up for the cut in the state funding, right?
For sure, right? And even a little bit more of that, right? And so, again, we've really, when you look at the overall budget increase, the budget increase is 1%, right? And so, what we're really looking at is the town contribution does need to go up a little bit, but yes, totally. And that is mainly due to cuts in state aid.
And would we be able to make this available to the public?
Yeah, I have to check that, but I
Okay.
think so,
All right, if we could, I'd appreciate that.
yes.
And that's the report that, the unfunded and underfunded mandates.
Justin?
Peter, you may not be able to answer this, and I apologize. I love the comparison of the municipal budget education appropriations, this slide, because it really, I think it gives people a good sense of how we fall in line with comparable districts. I am curious, though, this also includes some towns, and I don't know which ones off the top of my head. Fire is sometimes a separate tax. Is this including fire in all these, or do you know if?
I can research that for you, all right? But I do not know the answer to that, but I can look on the municipal transparency portal and look at it from there.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter. Yeah, Peter, one more comment. I do appreciate this year including the enrollment changes by district. There's always been a lot of conversation, particularly this year, about student enrollment, and people are correct. We have seen a decent decline in our student enrollment. But these numbers, I do think, back up what we've been saying, is that this is not just a Narragansett problem. We see this across most of South County, Washington County, and the adjacent
beyond,
areas. So I appreciate you including that this year.
Pete, my question is, I don't know if you have that in front of you, for the next two budget workshops, do you have the topics in front of you? For example, we've got the dates, so the Wednesday after school vacation, and that's usually the school-based focus ones, but
Correct.
do you have the breakdown of if that is schools, special services, curriculum, and then the following budget workshop is facilities, IT, transportation? Is that a good guess?
You answered your own question.
Okay.
So the first budget workshop on the
Okay.
26th will be the 3 schools and special services and curriculum, I believe. And then the second workshop is going to be, will be IT, will be transportation and operations.
Okay. And I would definitely, whatever we can do to kind of promote and encourage with families to come to those budget workshops, because that is really where we'll get, into the level of detail. So in our budget binder, we have got all the UCO, all the line items, but that's an opportunity for each principal will come up and they will kind of go over the budget highlights, the things that they had to prioritize, things that they wanted to keep, but unfortunately had to, kind of shift the priorities around, changes, to their staffing, the justification of that. And that's a really good time if you have very specific questions. The principals will be there to take, questions, as will, whether it's special services or Steve talking about facilities. So, a really detailed opportunity for us to go deeper into the budget. And I'm sure the admin team has been at least probably prepped for my question, which will always be, you've got to defend your budget and you've got to prioritize what's the most important thing, but at the end of all that, for us to meet our final total, there has to be something that is out there that didn't make it. So it's always that, if there was something, another priority that didn't make it into your building-based budget or your department, that really is a high priority, it's a high need that's really going to support student programs or improve your school, what would that be? So that's going to be my question at those budget workshops, because that's our opportunity to give Pete feedback. We have to, in March, vote on a dollar amount, and that dollar amount is going to be based on, right now, Dr. Cummings is saying, well, this is going to be hard, but I have found, 9 FTE positions across the district that we can cut, but that allows us to do X, Y, Z. So, it may be something you've heard from residents or parents. You may have ideas. One of the things that I noticed, CJ, when you and I went to the Special Education Advisory Committee meeting, I haven't sat in the library in the high school in a really long time, and I looked around, I'm like, it looks like it's the same furniture from the past like 25 years. So that was a question, Mr. Fiore, that I had for Dr. Cummings, like, what's the vision for the capital improvement plan for the library furniture for 21st century furniture? So I put a bug in Dr. Cummings' ear, and it sounds like the high school's been thinking about that too, but it's, you know, when you're in schools for whatever reasons, you know, things that you notice, that you see, you know, the budget workshops are a good opportunity to ask the principals, but also ask Dr. Cummings, because sometimes you notice something, and I'll say, Pete, you know, I've noticed this, and you'll say, well, gee, funny you asked that, because we've already been studying that issue or have been thinking about that as well, so. But the budget workshops are a really good opportunity to go deep into the budget, because then over the next 4 weeks, we have to give Dr. Cummings some directions about, you know what, I really want to prioritize this, but I don't want our overall budget to increase by much more, so can we find a reduction somewhere else so we can make this priority happen?
Well, I really don't need it.
The bun's a little sticky.
I know, and we've been asking the parents to show up for that also, like you mentioned, to come to express their views on that too. That is the time to come also.
Yeah, just to follow up, it would be a workshop, and workshops are way more, I would say, casual, a lot more back and forth, a lot more public engagement. That's the point of them. So we definitely encourage everyone to attend.
I think it's really important, too, that we're going to have them downstairs and live streamed. We've had different iterations over the years of, okay, it's a workshop, let's have a more informal setting, obviously open to the public like upstairs, but we're going to keep those budget meetings downstairs live streamed, so hopefully that'll, if someone can't come in person, maybe they will at least be watching from home. And yeah. Yeah, so I don't have, for myself, I don't have any questions. The one question that I had about the increase, I had reached out to you to really understand that, because it's always, you know, big picture when you look at it, it's like, all right, if our budget increase is only less than 1%, then why is the ask of the town under, you know, 3%? But then when you look at, you know, the loss in state aid, it's only, you know, $350,000, $380,000, but that's 13% less than last year. That's a huge amount for a small district. So when you look at, you know, the cost of healthcare going up, contractual raises, all the cost of living things, everything going up, and then, you know, you do what you can with the reductions. Cutting 9 FTEs is huge.
Right.
That's a
And
big,
it is unfortunate, great people.
in a small district, that's a lot of reductions in staff. So does the school committee, you know, again, this is obviously nothing we're voting on tonight. Any other questions tonight for Dr. Cummings before we move on? Marco, did you have a question or a comment?
Just a comment, I just wanted to say, I just learned a ton I did not know about what goes into the Narragansett school system. So, very interesting to hear that from a senior in high school. So, very interesting as to what goes into it.
And Marco, if you are available, you know, to come to the budget workshops, I actually think you would find those really interesting if you are around, because that's when the principals are going to go into a detailed level about the school priorities. So if you're available, we'd love to have you. If, you know, this is our very busy meeting time, so we understand if you can't make it till March, but if you can.
Yeah, so we're finishing up indoor track now, so I'll have to take a peek at the calendar and see.
Just run over after.
Okay. And then obviously to the committee too, so our first budget workshop's in 2 weeks, but if you look over the binder or tonight's presentation, if you have any questions or anything that you want to make sure gets answered at the budget workshops, just email Pete and reach out to him.
And we'll be posting this presentation on our website, along with the budget and detailed budget information if people at home want to access that.
All right, and thank you again for all of your work, Pete, and I know this was a big part of Karen's work for the past couple months, and for all of the admin team. It's a tremendous amount of work to get to this point in the budget season, so thank you for all your efforts. We appreciate that, and I thought the presentation was very succinct and very clear, and for the first time, I remember seeing pictures. So I actually really like that, because it's hard when you're looking at, you know, $35 million of priorities, but then when you actually like look at what the whole point of what we're doing here, when you see the pictures of the kids on their first day of middle school, or I loved that when the seniors were walking through and the little elementary kids are holding up the signs and high-fiving them, like, and that's one of my favorite pictures every year, because that's the view we get as a school committee on the stage when the kids are throwing up their hats. So we've got the best seat in the house for graduation, so, but I really I like the pictures. What, you know, the presentation that you do for the town council, I'd love for you to include the pictures, because that, I don't remember that, and I like that, so. But great presentation, Pete, we appreciate that. Okay, so we're gonna move on to consent agenda. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve consent agenda items CA1B, CA2A, CA2B, and CA2C?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have one comment. I just wanted to say, I'm glad Steve's here tonight, because just wanted to say that I like the new report format, and I imagine it was done to save paper and printing costs, and that's a good thing. My question is, on the ticket closed column, can we assume it was successfully closed, whatever the item was? Okay, thank you. Okay, well, thank you, Steve and Lauren.
Any other questions or comments about any consent agenda items? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. On to the budget report. Karen?
Good evening. Expenditures for the 7 months ended January 31st, 2025 total $17,782,599, and that's 48.21% of the budget. Expenditures and encumbrances total $31,505,533, and that's 85.42% of our budget.
Any questions for Karen? All right, thank you. Oh, no, okay. All right, thank you, Karen. So our first business item for tonight, this is a required item by March 1st every year. So we talked about the actual individuals in executive session tonight, but I've got a pretty long list of seniority numbers to go through. So the first one is about approval of non-renewal and displacement of certified staff for next year. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent for the displacement of the following teachers? Seniority numbers 25-6, 25-21, 25-38, 25-40, 25-41, 25-67, 25-68, 25-72, 25-79, 25-91, 25-94, 25-106, 25-110, 25-114, 25-127, 25-129, 25-131, and 25-142, and also the non-renewal of the following teachers with the seniority numbers 25-130, 25-133, 25-135, 25-136, 25-140, 25-141, and 25 retiree based upon the following reasons. Due to the number of students projected to require services in certain areas, it's anticipated that it'll be necessary to restructure positions or programs, and it's believed that there are better teachers available to fill the position. So we're looking for a motion.
Motion to accept the approval of non-renewal / displacement of certified staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, the next one, we are hopefully ready to vote on next year's 25-26 school calendar. So first of all, is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the school calendar for 25-26 school year?
Second.
All right, discussion. Pete, can you go over the highlights of the final draft you're recommending us to vote on tonight?
Sure thing. So two drafts. The main difference between the two drafts is around the holiday break. So in version 1, we would have school on the 22nd and the 23rd, and the holiday break would begin on Christmas Eve, the 24th. And that version also contains a PD day in March. Version 2 has a longer Christmas holiday vacation. So the 22nd and 23rd would be would be vacation days. And then we would distribute those PD hours throughout the year. That's allowable within our contract. So we would not do a PD day in March. In both cases, we would, with no snow days, conclude school in the third week of June. If there were snow days or emergency closing days, obviously that could possibly be pushed into the early 20s of June. In both calendars, we do have a starting after Labor Day, and both calendars do contain kind of a full February and spring break. So your main decision point, I would kind of counsel you, is really about those 2 days in December.
Peter, question, just to make sure I'm remembering correctly. The version with the 2 days in December, that's the RIDE recommended holiday break, correct?
Correct. I will say, in kind of talking with other superintendents, it varies district by district. And so there is no one kind of piece. I know North Kingstown and Jamestown haven't yet approved their calendars. And so I'm not certain which direction they're going to go. And so really, I can't recommend to you, what is one district versus another, what's the majority. It really is pretty split from knowledge base that I have so far.
Yeah, I got some split answers also, so I'm not helpful.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where everyone, it would be better if everyone was on board, but as we find out a lot of time, everyone's approving their calendars at the same point in the school year as we are, and so there's no clear indication what everyone's doing.
And obviously, I don't have a strong opinion either way because they're extremely similar. The end date is within a day. So version 1, you're talking about June 17th. Version 2, you're talking about June 18th. So the end date is within a day because of, like you said, a little flexing with the professional development. I wonder is if we go with version 1, where kids are in school December 22nd and December 23rd, a Monday and a Tuesday, I wonder if there are going to be significant absences on the side of students and perhaps teachers. So if teachers have childcare issues, students and stuff like that, I'm not sure how much meaningful instruction is going to happen on the Monday, Tuesday, December 22nd and 23rd. I know that the schools are seeing an extremely high number of really kind of a lot of illness, a lot of flu, a lot of COVID, a lot of neurovirus, a lot of everything is December and January and February has been really hard, I think, across the state with schools. So I wonder if it made a big swing on the other end, like, oh, geez, it's going to push us into Monday the 22nd or the 23rd, I'd say let's try to get out earlier. But if you're talking about June 17th, June 18th, really not a big difference. But I think we could get a big difference in December if we went with version 2. Then you get a good chunk of time to really let's get the kids away from each other, clean the schools, And then you wouldn't have to worry that if there's sickness, if there's childcare issues, if you have teachers that are calling out those days, and those are already tricky instructional days when the kids are super excited, so it's, I don't really care if the committee has a strong opinion one way or the other, and it's tough with the ride one. The ride one is, I would just say err on the side of, I don't think those are going to be meaningful instruction days. It's a time where, illness is high, where parents are pulling kids out of school for traveling to family. Kids, it's not a lot of meaningful instruction happening December 23rd when it's a Monday and a Tuesday. I would say if we went with version 2, they're out the 19th. That's a good solid week and a half that kill the germs, spread, that. And then we're still out June 18th because in this calendar year, we don't have to close for primary day and election day because it's an off cycle. So, what I think we should do is we should land the plane and vote because it's so similar and people just are making plans and stuff. But open to what the committee wants to do. If I had to pick one, I'd pick version 2, and that's just mostly for those, I don't know how much great instruction we're gonna get and other things, but I don't really carry it away.
I think my preference for the same reasons you've kind of listed out, with especially the lack of proper education days. Those, the 23rd, 22nd, 23rd, the kids will struggle. I do have a slight preference for version 2 as well. Do we want to?
Well, let's hear if Diane or Dave or CJ or Pete have comments.
Questions?
I just have a comment that I favor version 2 also, not so much for the longer holiday break, but out of the 10 months that we're in school, there's only 1 month, the month of March, that we have a full month of learning and a full month of every day of the school week being attended for both students and teachers. So I think we should have at least 1 month of uninterrupted learning, so that's why I favor version 2.
Dave or CJ?
Yeah, the version 2, I think, is the better from a calendar standpoint, having 2 full weeks rather than having 2 days right before the break. The only thing that I'm holding on to version 1 for is that it's the RIDE recommended guidance, and my fear is that if other districts go with the RIDE recommended guidance, some of our teachers will have childcare issues. But I guess now we're split 50-50. The same conversation's going on across Rhode Island. And if other school committees are coming to the same consensus that we're coming to, then version 2 may be the better option.
So what I would say with the childcare one, if we go with version 2, where our teachers don't have to work, they're not going to have childcare issues if their children have to go to school.
That's true.
It actually works in our favor because the teachers may have the day off in Narragansett and their little children will go to school. But if you flip it, if our teachers have to work the 22nd and the 23rd and where their little kids go to school, now their 5- and 6-year-old is home, somebody's got to take care of their kid that day. So
That has fully swung me to version 2 then.
and that's what's tricky, when you have a 5- and a 6-year-old and you don't have a daycare system set up because you're both working people and you count on school being in school, someone in the family has to take the day off to stay home with your 5-year-old.
I would just recommend to the committees their professional obligation to be at school. And so, in terms of your decision-making, I would recommend to you, while I appreciate the consideration for our staff, we are giving them almost a year to figure it out. And so, so I think it is, I would base it on the needs of the Narragansett students. And again, we have a very committed staff. They will figure it out if they need to be here.
Do you have a preference, Pete, that you have heard from the teachers union or your admin team or other stakeholders? Like, do you have a preference from stakeholders you've heard of?
Certainly from a breaking cycle of illness factor, certainly a little longer break around Christmas is helpful. I will also recommend to you, it's really it's a no-win either way, because those 2 days, I agree, would be more challenging learning days. At the elementary school, at the high school, you're getting a little bit more towards midterms, so those are important learning days as they go forward. You know, the end of June days are not always high-quality learning days, kind of depending on where we are with that. I will tell you, in either case, it is highly likely we will have to go into the, you know, early 20s, kind of depending on the level of storms that happen. We typically have, this year has been an anomaly, knock on wood, but we typically have, you know, a couple of snow days that may disrupt, you know, getting out before the 19th as much as we try to. So I know that's a non-answer, but I would tell you, you know, quite honestly, there are advantages to both. And so I would just recommend to you, you know, kind of going with your instinct on what you feel best represents the needs of the community. Having those 2 weeks is great for some families. It's going to be, you know, some challenge for others, but you're also, again, giving people almost a year to plan for that.
That wasn't super helpful, Pete, but.
I know.
And again, I think it's, I think no matter what we vote on and decide, we're getting really stressed out about a swing of 1 day. It's not like we are, gee, should we remove February vacation and April vacation and do a week in March? Like, we're not doing any, or like, hey, for the first time in 18 years, should we start school August 25th? Where that has like a big impact on the businesses and everything. Like, we're really getting stuck about a day.
Those have been the sticking issues, has been August, that date, and early.
So we need to amend our motion to approve one version or the other. Justin?
Motion to, so I amend the motion, or do you?
Well,
I'm actually not sure.
well, we just got to pick version 1 or version 2 and vote on it. So,
If it's helpful at all, Tammy, I would predict to you that we're going to have high absence rates if you have school on the 22nd and 23rd.
Should I make a motion then to approve version 2?
I'm going to support that. It sounds like, from CJ and it sounds like the 5 of us, that's the one we are more comfortable with.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to amend our, I'm going to make a motion to amend to add that version 2 be accepted for approval for the 2025-2026 school calendar.
All right, yes, so the new motion is to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the school calendar, version number 2, for 25-26 school year. So Justin, you're moving that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0 for version number 2, where in December, the last day will be Friday, December 19th. All right.
18th, the 19th is Juneteenth.
No, I was talking about in December. Yeah, sorry. No, in December. No, in December, it'll be the 19th. And the end date, it'll TBD what it is with the weather. Okay, all right, thanks, Pete. Okay, so on to number 3, for about the approval of student Chromebooks. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and the director of finance and administration to approve the purchase of Chromebooks for the student one-to-one device rollout from Dell Technologies at a total cost of $87,207.30?
Second.
Discussion. Hello.
Good evening, yes. This is the yearly purchase I bring to you to continue our one-to-one. As we've said in the past, we do it this way to project cost for our district. It's not coming to you every 4 years with a huge purchase, and it works well for our district. So every year we purchase for incoming first graders. We purchase 2-in-1 devices because they're making the transition from iPad to a device where it's hard for them to learn the keyboard, so they have the option of using the 2-in-1 feature with it. We purchase, and they keep that for 4 years until they get to middle school. We purchase for incoming 5th graders, which they keep for 4 years, and then we purchase again for them when they enter 9th grade, and they keep them for 4 years. Usually I come to you at the end of January for this purchase because Dell's fiscal year ends in January, but Dell had a revamp of all of their models right at the beginning of January. So in talking to our sales rep, he advised us holding off. So when I began discussions with Dell in December, our overall purchase for business item 3 and 4, our initial pricing came in at about $182,000, and I was able to get it down to about $150,000 for both purchases.
We always appreciate you being, really ahead of the game with your long-term budgeting, and that's how you're able to find some significant savings and get the technology that we need for the kids. So
Yeah,
thank you for
and I
that.
appreciate you entertaining this early because we're able to purchase and have it ready for summer instead of ordering in July and getting it 2 weeks before school begins.
Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And also for you, item number 4, is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and the director of finance and administration to approve the purchase of laptops and docks for administrators and support staff at a total cost of $46,163.18?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, once again, this kind of plays into our cycle. So instead of coming to you and saying we're buying teacher laptops, administrator laptops, all in one vote, we end up splitting it up over 4 years. So 1 year we do middle school teacher laptops, the following year high school teacher laptops, elementary school the following year, and our 4th year we do administrators and certain support staff. So this will include our 12 people at central office and 6 at each school, and that covers our principal, assistant principal, or dean, nurse, 2 secretaries, and our tech person there. So it's kind of just continuing our cycle and same type of thing. We're able to get it in early, get them ready for the summer, and they're ready for the fall when people are ready to go.
Great. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are there any communications that anyone wants to mention before we close? Okay, so after February vacation, we will be back here at 6 o'clock for budget workshop number 1 about the school's special services and curriculum. That's Wednesday, February 26th at 6 o'clock. The following Wednesday, March 5th, will be budget workshop number 2 at 6 o'clock. Hold in your calendar in case we need budget workshop number 3 the following Wednesday. And then our March regular business meeting will be 7 o'clock here, Wednesday, March 19th. Is there? Oh, yes, Diane.
Just before we close, I was wondering, and I'm glad you're here tonight, that we have a 7th grade student who came in second in the state in the VFW Patriots Pen essay, Sarah Whitworth. So I wanted to say congratulations to her, and is there a possibility we might get a copy of her essay to read?
Absolutely. I know Sarah and her mother, Jen, is a part of the VFW. They worked very hard with Sarah to produce a great essay about citizenship. I'd be happy to get that to the committee.
Thank you.
And maybe can we invite Sarah to, it's Sarah, right? To the next meeting. I don't know if we will have a certificate or something from the school department that we could present if the student is able to come.
I'd be happy to extend the invitation.
Okay. Any other questions or comments before we close? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn at 8:25?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Have a